Segment 3, Gold and Black Live, joined by Chris Peliadot. And Chris, an athletic director, associate athletic director, but handles fan experience and marketing for Purdue Athletics. And by the time this goes, in the next 28, 30 hours of yours is going to be a whirlwind, starting with tonight's game against Oregon. Purdue takes on the Ducks. Just the third home Friday night game in Ross-Ade Stadium history. But first, welcome, and know full well that this is going to be an exciting time for fans tonight in Ross-Ade.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. We're definitely looking forward to it. Night games are always fun. Friday kind of adds a little extra to it, so we're excited about it.
Well, there's obviously it's a blackout, and we've seen sneak previews, I think, of the helmet. I think those have been authorized and looked at. But tell me, and some special lighting effects, what will fans see that might be slightly different and more exciting for another sellout or close to sellout crowd in Ross-Ade Stadium?
Like you said, I mean, we'll debut a new uniform and helmet this weekend. It's been out there. I think it's been received well. The Purdue script will adorn the helmet, and that has really taken off since basketball introduced that on their jersey. A bit of an homage to the '60s script that they wore, and that's really become a mark that most of our teams use now. And this will be kind of football's debut using it, so we're excited for that. And then just for the night game. Yeah, it'll be a good crowd. Should be high energy, and it allows us to do a little bit more with lighting throughout the game. So you'll see that anywhere from pregame to halftime to some of the stuff we'll do during some of the breaks. So it allows us to have a little bit more fun, engage a little different way than we can in a typical day game.
And you ordered up good weather too. It sounds like we're going to have a good night in October. I remember one night game that was a Saturday night game, of course, the famous Tyler Trent game around the same date. I think it was October 20th, freezing cold as it turned out. But but
we got a break that day though, because if you remember, like the pregame weather was absolutely, it was like high winds, like
the
golf course, like it was really bad. But by kickoff, like all that stuff went away. And it was still cold. But the other elements that we had to deal with pregame went away at kick. So that was one of those magical things that just kind of happened that day.
And it was an interesting situation because you control it is fan experience, and there's so much to that now. And that was a date too. I believe you had to cancel you basically had to batten down the hatches for tailgating too. My point is you got to be fluid in this business. I mean, there are things that can change in a minute, and you have to be able to react to that. Talking about in your career, which has spanned a good period of time at Purdue and at Air Force and other places before that, that's a key thing for you in this role to be nimble, I should say.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest things. I mean, we do the game scripts, so we're planning pretty much everything, obviously, other than the plays themselves, but all the stuff at timeouts and on the video boards and all of those. And I've yet to have a game go perfect, but that's always the goal, right? But the ability to adjust and move things around, because we can't control a lot of things. So if there's an injury or, we don't do anything during injury, so that causes, disruptions in our script, or when we score going into breaks, like that causes some disruption. So the ability to adjust, and I tell our students, that work, and they do the lion's share of executing the stuff on the field, that, hey, we're going to prepare as best we can. And that's the goal. Everybody knows what your role is, what your job is. This is the plan going in, but we know something's going to change. We just don't know what. So the ability to handle that, stay calm, move things around. That's something that we have to deal with every single game, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, whatever it may be. There's always something that comes up that we're not planning for, not expecting. I've done it long enough where we know that it's coming. Some days it's easier to handle than others, but our students largely execute a lot of that for us, and they do a great job staying under control and level-headed. And that's what you got to have. Like, can't get too emotional if something doesn't go right, because you're gonna walk right into something else the next time out, and you got to be ready to go there and make sure you're ready for that situation. So it's fun. It's what we sign up for.
Yeah, I mean, in your career too. I mean, you've seen this continue to evolve. I mean, it gets, and it's almost a case where it's got to get. You've been at Purdue since 2011.
Yeah.
but you have to, it's like it's got to get better next year. There's something new and different when it comes to that. How do you talk about your planning for this? Because you guys go through planning, promotional plans, et cetera, well in advance of each season, and every team from that has, I think, that hosts home events has a promotional plan. But walk us through what that typically looks like, not only for football and basketball, but for any sport.
Yeah, really for any sport, kind of planning for the next season starts really within about a month of that previous season ending. So like our role for our marketing group is once a regular home season has ended, within about 30 days, we want to do a report on our season from everything from attendance and sales to what promotions we did, what worked well, what didn't, kind of review the year and then start to put down initial ideas for the next year. And so once we do that, then we'll meet with the coaches or the ops group or the administrator or all of them and kind of go through there and then start to have initial discussions. And then as we kind of get into the spring, with football and volleyball in particular, we get a little bit more of the meat into the plan. So kind of by spring game, we kind of know what we're doing for that. But same with basketball. Basketball, we meet in April. Once the season's over. This year, obviously, was fortunate. We were delayed a little bit, which we would take that every single year. Yeah. But that's the plan because we want to talk about things as they're fresh or as fresh as they can be, and have the teams involved in that. And then we'll start to have those plans. And as we get a little bit removed and before we get schedules in, then we'll get a little bit more specific on changes or additions that we may do for the season. So it's really largely year round. There's some breaks here and there, but our last home game here is November 16th, right. And our plan will be that regardless of, if it's a year that we go to a bowl, it doesn't really change. Our plan is to try to have the review and initial thoughts of what we want to do for football before we go away for a Christmas break. And then we'll start to ramp that back up in January, February with conversations with the team some more. But like I said, every sport's a little different, but that process is in place for every sport that we work with. Go from there because if you forget about it for 8 months, then you're just kind of scrambling. Our goal is once we get to the season, our job is largely to execute. There's always going to be changes and tweaks, and we may do something because of a situation or a circumstance that we want to take advantage of. But we want to have time to do those. If we're planning the season during the season, we don't have time to really spend a lot of time taking advantage of things that may fall our way.
You look at, and one thing, TV doesn't make life easy for people that are trying to run events, and basketball is nutty. I mean, it's the way it is, and we all get used to it. We don't know. This year seemed like it was later than ever for both men's and women's basketball, timing and schedules, and that does impact the fact that you've got, I don't know what it is in the men's schedule, three or four Friday night games in Big Ten play. Has to change. It's got to be a little bit different between what you're going to do on a Friday versus a Sunday. How much does that come into play as you do your planning and then you have to make those nimble changes?
Yeah, I mean, we don't put anything in stone. So like with basketball in particular, we'll have a list of things that we want to do, whether it be our T-shirt game or a bobblehead or those types of things. So we'll have the list of what we want. And then when we get the schedule, then we put the puzzle together. So, we Friday nights, don't change a whole lot for us on the basketball side. Sundays can, because Sundays will, we look at, what times that game, people are locally, if they're going to church, what their availability is. So the ability to do like a giveaway, maybe we won't do on a Sunday potentially. Like I'll use, for example, we're doing our ring giveaway this year for men's again. Looking at, we've historically kind of done that the first game of the year as a kickoff, but this year, our first regular season game is at 6:00.
Yeah,
and then So is that the fairest thing to do for some people who may have a challenge to get here early for a 6 o'clock? So we push that back to the next Monday where it's an 8 o'clock game. So it levels the playing field, I guess, to some extent, because those giveaways are a little bit limited. But those are all things that we'll look at when the schedule comes out to try to make the most sense and be the most effective with those types of things that we do on a game day.
And I don't know whether you're ready to disclose or whether you've already disclosed this. Is there a bobblehead in the works for men's basketball this year? And if so, if you can share it, what's the plan?
Yeah, so we'll have our bobblehead game. It's the Wisconsin game, I think February 15th, and then we're honoring Caleb Swanigan this year with the bobblehead, and hope to have some of his family back, because we've been fortunate to get the bobblehead recipients back in almost every case, or at least a family member in some cases. And that's the goal again this year, is to reach out to them, but really celebrate the legacy he has here. I mean, he was an unbelievable player for us at the time he was here. So well deserved, and it's just unfortunate that he can't be here with us this year to have his moment back in Mackey.
Yeah, they're based on what happened in the men's season last year and the trip to the Final Four. You've got a whole host of things down the road. You're already celebrating, obviously, but we'll be celebrating for many years to come, certainly. All right, nothing else going on Saturday. Well, yes, actually a lot. You've got, not only you're going to have a football game that's going to end at around 11:30. You're going to turn right around and have women's basketball and men's basketball fan day, I think starting at 9 o'clock on on Saturday morning. Walk us through a little bit of that, what the plan is, because that is always extremely well attended. And then we'll get to that volleyball game on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, we're always excited about fan day. I think we're blessed with great fans here with all around, but especially Purdue basketball. And so, yes, it'll be a short night for us on Friday night. We'll be back here 7:30, 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Doors will open at 8:30. I think come in and watch the women's team practice starting at 9, and then they'll go to about 9:30 or 10:30. And we'll do autographs 10:45 to 11:45 ish. And I always enjoy that, getting to see the kids meet their heroes, meet the players, and we have unbelievable players here on both programs, men's and women's. Like they're really, really good with the fans, with kids in particular, and they can get their autographs and sneak a picture here or there. But whenever you get the 6-year-olds come in and they see, a Will Berg or in past Zach Edey, and just that size, their eyes get, so big, and that never gets old. So it's the first opportunity for our fans to see the teams practice, and then obviously get the chance to meet them. And so, like I said, we'll do the autographs and the mental practice from 12 to 1:30, and all are welcome. And hopefully we get a good crowd as we have in previous years. So a little bit of a, it's a tight turn for everybody, but we're hopeful that we'll get a good crowd out as we typically do. But everything, it's free for everybody. There'll be some concessions available if people need an early soda or something like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just a good time to get out and get ready and get excited for the basketball season to come here. That'll start, about 10 days later?
Yeah,
So,
October 30th, right? Oh,
yeah,
my mercy,
yeah.
it's crazy for the men's exhibition game as well. Braden Smith will be able to tote that, though it's certainly made its rounds. His Dave, I call it the Dave Letterman type beard, but there's always personality.
He's trimmed it now a little bit.
I know, that's what I understand, and I've been able to practice a little bit, but yeah, that's and again, I think the thing that also has to make your job, I suppose it could make it extra tough if you didn't have willing student athletes, but it seems, and it can, at least to the observer, that you've really got some really good people to work with that are open to it. Yes, I know it's a world of NIL now and all that kind of stuff that plays into some of this, but you got to have willing participants for autograph sessions, and you can't get any better than Zach Edey was in terms of signing autographs, and to the very end, you may never find another elite athlete like that again. But talk about that, and this how much that is a big part of really getting that not only that message out, but that experience out for that fan that has that personal experience with a student athlete, a player on either team.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So it's it's about connection, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I believe if you can, especially for the kids, like if you're a fan of a team or a player, as a kid, like you're going to be a fan of that team or player as you get older. I grew up outside of St. Louis, and I'm a diehard Cardinals fan. And that started because I got to go, or I got to get an autograph at some point, and so we want to be able to share those things. And here at Purdue, in the 13, this is my 14th season. I'm not just saying it. Like I haven't really had an experience with any of our players at any of our teams where they've been, high drama or not want to do something. I don't think anybody would enjoy, sitting down, signing their name for an hour all of the time, but you would never know it. And our players, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, they all do it, and they're all very willing. And you see it because if they were faking it, you'd be able to see it. When they're sitting there on Saturday, and you're not going to see it. They're generally very engaging. They might be a little tired,
Yeah.
but their willingness to do it has never been a challenge. And the world of NIL hasn't changed that for us, fortunately. And we hope that stays the case. Because I do think our players across our program get it. That our fans are invested, and they truly love these programs and these teams. And so they do everything they can to show their appreciation, and whether it be Carson Edwards or Rondale Moore or David Blau or any of those type players, like we've never had issues with them not being willing to do something, whether it's a fan day or going above and beyond and doing something outside of that. And as you mentioned, Zach was unbelievable. I told him last year at fan day, for what it's worth, I said, what you do after every game is like unprecedented. I've never seen that. And I know our fans appreciate it, but his approach to that was something I had never seen from anybody. I think it's just a larger example of what our teams generally do. Cause I don't think I've ever seen a player, not be willing to do something for, especially a kid, Yeah. And so that's a testament to them and their character and their parents and their coaches and how they've been brought up.
Yeah, it's an extra testament to a guy that at 21 or 22 years old that can realize that his legacy is cemented no matter what he does. I know that's not what his motivation, but just the fact that he took the time with every one of those young persons that he dealt with, again, just like your experience in St. Louis, that means everything from that standpoint. A couple of other questions, just one about how you guys as a department, because it's all about building, I think you won awards from at a national level of building that bond, whether it be visually, whether it be that personal fan experience, the kind of things that we see on the and I'll use the Caleb First Elf promotion on down. It's about building personality, about building connection. Talk about that planning stage, and I'm just curious: is there anybody that's going to be? It'll be fun to see, I should say, who will be the next media star at timeout this year. I'm sure you've got something up your sleeve, but there's some personalities on that men's team as well.
Yeah, no, we have fun with it, and there isn't like a driving, plan behind it. We would, in the time I've been here, with some of the personality stuff, going back with, Tommy Luce was probably the first like big one that we had really take off. That idea came from one of our student interns, with doing something there, and we tweaked it and played with it, and Tommy was on board, and getting loose with Tommy Luce was born from there. In terms of Caleb, we'd had the idea. One of our creative guys, Chris Johnson, he kind of started the idea the year before we did it. Right. We didn't think the timing was perfect then with Caleb as a freshman and coming in, so we didn't want to add that to the load. And so over the year a little bit, we did something else that year. And then we brought it back up the next year. We'd always done posters, and that was the initial idea. But the more time we had with that one, it's like, well, this could be fun. And, let's see if Caleb was on board. And I mean, he's a natural, like he's unbelievable, with it. But a lot of it is it comes from brainstorming. We've got great people here, very smart people, creative people, and that kind of stuff is fun to do. And like you said, the whole goal, whether it's the elf stuff or an intro video or a social media video or a graphic, we're really trying to highlight what our teams have accomplished or what our players have done, because we have a very storied history here across our sports in a lot of ways. Football has unbelievable lineage of players, and basketball has players, and obviously we've won more Big Ten championships than anybody else. So there's each program. The women's is the only Big Ten team to win a national championship. So trying to not lose sight of those things, because we have fans that are 6 or 60, in every case. And so their experience is lifelong. So trying to find those abilities to touch on all of those